We're streaming live
Start
now,
strong,
so we're going to start streaming
finish
live
strong
now so that we
with the
prepare.
stimulating aroma and rich, creamy
Okay, I'll be right back. I need to grab a glass of water.
Okay.
All starts with the best cafe.
Love music. Love music. Love music. Love music.
Love music. Love music. Music.
Love
Music.
love life. Love life. Love life.
Love 98.1.
This 98.1.
There's nowhere on this earth that compares.
Smooth.
My name is Rachel Kerr. Let me tell you about my Lagos. There's nowhere on this earth that compares. From mainland to island to the roadside soya, there's nothing like that. And of course, the sweltering heat from morning till evening. Now in my Lagos, nothing compares to the weddings. Nothing compares to our parties. But one thing I will say is there's nothing like reaching your land of Lagos. My Lagos, your Lagos.
Driving Lagos.
Simple rules for driving safely around Lagos. On a 3-lane carriageway, you must stay in the middle lane when traffic is slower on the inside
Right,
or
we're live.
right
Morning.
lane. But
Good
you
morning,
should
everyone,
return
and
the
welcome
inside
to the
lane when you have passed
The
them.
Freshly Pressed
The
91
far
here.
left lane
We're
is
going to
for
go live on
overtaking
air in a
only
moment.
without
And then
cutting
we'll...
in.
This is Lagos.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you very much for joining us. You have the odd stories, and Mr. C has
Yes.
the... All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. Oh, going live.
Presents the headlines, the stories, the news. In-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
Headlines.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. It's 7:30 a.m. and time for Freshly Pressed 981. It's the last Monday in the month of March, 29th of March 2021. And joining me this morning for today's edition of the show, I have Mr. C. Good morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, Naya. Good morning, Lagos. And let's get ready for Easter.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. C. And also we have Tunde Okufi. Good morning, Tunde.
Good morning, Naya. Good morning, Mr. C, and good morning, Lagos.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Tunde. Right, we'll go to our stories, but this is how, if you would like to join the conversation, you can send us a message on WhatsApp or on Twitter. We're also live on YouTube at the moment, so you can watch us live on there. On WhatsApp, it's 0809 444 0981. That's 0809 444 0981. On Twitter, it's at Smooth981FM. And on YouTube, it's at Smooth981FM Lagos. I'll start with you on this one, Tunde, and it's on COVID-19 vaccine not for sale, says the federal government. The federal government has dispelled the possibility of any fake COVID-19 vaccines being administered or sold by an authorized institution in the country. Amidst a number of reservations, what's come up is this issue around fake vaccines being sold, and it's as the maxim goes, no smoke without fire. There was an interception of 3,000 doses of fake COVID-19 vaccines destined for Africa from China. However, the federal government have said they put in place certain measures to ensure that we don't have fake COVID vaccines in circulation. Please take us through the story.
Yes, thank you. It's an unfortunate situation where, or should I say maybe almost an expected situation where wherever there's demand, you would find unscrupulous people, trying to supply that demand. However, I'm a little less worried about fake vaccines now. I'm not saying not worried, just a little less worried, especially being that the sole, as of today, the sole administrators of vaccines are still, government, agencies. You have to go to specific places to receive the vaccines. The government is still also the sole importer of the vaccines. It's also been highlighted in the story that the only point of entry for vaccines into the country is the international airports in Abuja. All of those things sort of come together to make detecting fake and unauthorized consignments easy to detect. So if someone is trying to bring it in through any of the seaports or bring it through any of our other airports, it sort of kind of immediately flags it if it's not coming in from Abuja and coming in with all the right paperwork. So bottom line, because the distribution and supply, internal supply anyway, is streamlined, it's sort of easier to control that, but it's not something that we shouldn't pay, a lot of attention to. We should also be thankful that it's almost, my opinion, that because we're not in the middle of a spike, there is less of a scramble for vaccines. And if there was a huge scramble, and the government today, the truth is the situation we have is that we have more vaccines available than people, in a sense, almost willing to take them. You find some centers, have huge crowds, and other centers are almost deserted, to be honest. So there isn't that overall pressure. Now, if there was, and we're in the middle of a spike and there was a panic to receive the vaccines, it creates more of an opportunity for people to look at unauthorized channels and then get exposed to fake vaccines. It's one of vigilance. It's one way continue to educate individuals and continue to educate the populace as to where and the proper and authorized channels to receive vaccines to sort of reduce the impact of the possibility of encountering and coming across fake vaccines.
Yeah.
But it's a reality we have to live with. Fake, and Nigeria, Africa will not be the only destination. We just need to be careful with where we go to receive our medication, receive our vaccination. And the government obviously has a huge role to play in preventing this coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So number one is for us to know if you're not going to the primary health centers or officially designated centers for the vaccinations, then you run the risk of being exposed to, the government has assured us that it wouldn't even come in because of this, the way they're going to ensure that they check imports. However, just in case, and you don't pay for it. So if you're paying for it, the possibility or of you paying for something fake is higher. Let's move on to our next story, and that is on NIN. Telcos lose 11.8 million subscribers in 4 months, Mr. C. This is a report in the Punch newspaper. The number of telecom subscribers in the country dropped by that amount in 4 months, according to latest industry statistics from the Nigerian Communications Commission. I think this article is really important because it's just for us to analyze data that's coming from the NCC and how there's been a drop across board. And I wonder what could be the reason. What I would have expected would be an increase in the number of users. Please take us through the story.
Okay, thank you, Aya. So the Nigerian Communications Commission released its industry figures for the month of February, and it showed a universal drop in the number of subscribers amongst all the telecom providers in the country. And they also showed the figures for January 2021. So what has happened is between December 2020 and January 2021, we've lost about 8.42 million subscribers. Now, the viewers and the listeners would want to know why have they dropped. Now, the newspaper report itself doesn't say why that huge number was recorded, but we can rationalize about it, and poor services would be one of them. Two, you probably have phone lines that were stolen. You probably have phones that were stolen, and we need to put this at the backdrop of the December 2020 directive by the NCC that the sales of new SIM cards have been suspended, registration of new subscribers suspended, porting of subscribers from one network to another is suspended. So it is quite alarming because in the corresponding period, we've had more businesses stay at home, more employees stay at home, and there's been an increasing number of people resorting to data. So if you check the figures for all the telecom companies, revenue for data services went up compared to last year, compared to 2019, but the figures they get for voice calls, active voice calls, actually dropped. Now, you would think that given all of this, that number of subscribers signing up for data services would have gone up. There was a corresponding drop. There's a corresponding drop for broadband penetration. And it speaks to a larger issue that maybe there are operational reasons why this is happening, and until we get more detailed data, we can only begin to guess as to why we are having millions of subscribers dropping off each month from each of the networks. And it's cause for concern, really, because the NCC and the telcos need to sit down and understand what is happening and see whether they can stop it. Because I'm concerned that in 4 months, 11.84 million subscribers have signed off the networks. Yeah. Where did they go? Clearly, all of them did not leave the country. So if they're not using those lines, those SIM cards, what exactly is going on?
Yeah.
And if we don't understand why this is happening, we're going to record and experience similar numbers in the months coming.
Yeah.
So it's work for the NCC and the telcos to do, and we hope that, I personally hope that this is brought to a quick end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have from Tayo and Aja saying subscribers drop, but Minister of Technology and Digital Economy was recently awarded as an economic driver. Like you mentioned, Mr. C, I think one of the things here in this report is that we have the numbers. It will be great for the NCC to go further by giving us reasons, or perhaps understand the appetite of people, of users, why people have stopped using. It'll be a better indication of what can then be done if it's a problem that needs to be addressed. All right, from Sean, regarding the NCC figures, I actually expected a higher number. People have lost SIMs and can't replace them. That's true. Multiple cards with internet services only won't be registered because of the current hassle with the NIN. Services are getting poorer, and most importantly, people's disposable income is shrinking, or is shrinking daily. All right, thank you very much. Whilst Chibuke thinks that the drop in telecom subscribers is likely due to technicalities, he's been unable to use one of his lines due to a SIM malfunction and can't retrieve it due to the NCC suspension issue. If he didn't have another line, he'll be off the grid. So thanks a lot for pointing out these issues. These are big things to talk about. And that's why, like you mentioned, Mr. C, it'd be nice to have a better context as to why we have this data. LGE, that's the Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees, threatens to shut down councils over bill to scrap 774 local government areas. National President of NOLG, Comrade Ambali Olatunji, made this known while speaking to journalists in Abuja over the weekend, and warned that the union would not hesitate to mobilize its members on a mass protest to the National Assembly to resist what they described as anti-people plot. He expressed disappointment to the member of the House of Representatives from Rivers State that was said to have brought up such a controversial bill. The bill is meant, according to this report, to take away the local government as the third tier of government. What do you make of this, Tunde?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the proposal of the bill, is to remove the local government as a third tier of government, and in theory, the tier of government that is supposed to be closest to the people. There is no talk or there's no indication of what they plan to replace the local government with. Local governance done right is important, but the question we need to ask ourselves here is if we do local governance right at all. First of all, there is the undue influence and oversight and pressure that the state government is able to apply on the local government. And the attendant effect of that is that local government elections are not elections, they're very often selections. There is no democracy in that tier of governance. And when there is no democracy, and it's essentially a selection, and you're not held up, you're not accountable to the people, you find situations that we have today where from local council chairman to the local government chairman, you're the local government chairman in one area, but you reside in another. You may even reside in another state, for all people know. The attendant result of that, of course, is that the people, and again, I said local government is supposed to be the tier that's closest to the people. The people don't gain any of the benefits, right? You can argue that we gain very little benefits of any of the tiers of government, but then local governments, again, are supposed to attend to the most pressing needs, the everyday needs. Look, if local governance is done right, there can be misbehavior at the federal or even at the states. And, because your local issues have been dealt with, it's slightly better. Do you understand? Things affecting the community.
Can I ask you a question?
Go on.
Tunde, sorry, because just as you're talking about responsibilities, what is the role of the local government? Because a number of people, it would surprise you to know, they don't understand. Is it to collect fees? What's their responsibility to the people that they represent?
Of course, it's not just to collect fees. It's not. All right, Mr. C, chime in.
Okay, quick. So the local governments have their duties clearly stated in Section C of the 99 Constitution. And basically, they do everything that states cannot do. So, for example, the land use charge, they're supposed to be the ones collecting it. There's some other agreed rates that they're supposed to collect, like the TV licenses, the radio licenses. They're also supposed to ensure that certain category of roads are well kept, well maintained. They're supposed to look after the immediate environment. But I want to speak to even the law. Now, this proposed bill, for me, is a non-starter, and I'll explain why. The local governments are clearly incorporated into the 99 Constitution, and the law is clear. To amend the Constitution, you need 2/3 of the houses of assemblies in Nigeria today, that is 24 of them, agreeing to the change. So it's not enough for the National Assembly to sit down, purport that they're going through a bill to remove the 774 local governments when they're clearly incorporated into the Nigerian Constitution and they're clearly listed in Section C of the said Constitution. So I don't know where they're going with this bill, and I wish them the best of luck.
All right, thank you. Tunde, are you going to say something in addition? Thank you, Mr. C.
No, I mean, essentially, this, for me, I think this is where they've gotten to in this stage and process. Whether they would attain the momentum required to make the changes or not remains to be seen. But with all the things and all the ills of the 99 Constitution, it's interesting that this is one of the ones that they've decided to take up. The truth is that it's all of this is a question of money and control. That has always been the argument with the local governments. The state governors want to control the funds, and here this is where we are.
Thank you. I asked that question earlier, Tunde and Mr. C, because, and as I've seen, a number of people are saying, what is the local government doing for me? They should scrap it. What are they doing? I don't see any. And they have responsibilities. They have a role to play. Huge. Actually, very, critical roles. It's just that, like you mentioned, if it's done rightly. Let me take some of the comments. Sparta Kratos 12 on YouTube says, this is why the call for restructuring is important. Our local governments for decades have been non-functional. Samuel from Lekki says the local governments are not working because the state governments are gagging them. If they're given the chance, they'll do much better. Instead of removing them, let's remove the Senate. And if possible, let's remove the federal government. I mean, what have we gained from them except sharing money? Well, Sam, you've gone in hard. All right, okay, so Sean makes a very good point. He says, for those trying to remove the local government tier, this is how you know there is no attempt whatsoever to extend any form of governance to the grassroots. A quick example, I'm currently having issues with a noisy religious center. Why should I, living in Ekpe, be making complaints to Alausa and waiting for their action when this is something that should be handled at council level? The LASEPA phone numbers are not working. We'll talk about that one another day. So we should bring up these issues. What are they doing? Why are they not doing what they ought to be doing? All right, tanker drivers threaten to disrupt fuel distribution nationwide, says The Guardian. It looks like there's so many forces working against PMS in Nigeria currently. So Petroleum Tanker Drivers branch of the Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has threatened to stop the distribution of petrol products across the country due to what it described as unbearable working conditions. Now, Tunde, Mr. C, they mentioned a number of things, including one that I picked out: safety. Safety valves to prevent leakages when they have accidents. I thought that was a very good point. But please explain to us what they're looking for and what they'll go on strike for if they don't get.
Okay, thank you, Aya. So the Petroleum Tankers Drivers Union had a meeting over the weekend in Ibadan. And at the end of that meeting, they issued a statement. Now, the main grouse of the PTD is that the National Association of Road Transport Owners has failed to issue a collective bargaining agreement with them. And that the last collective bargaining agreement they had with the PTD expired in 2015. So the first question that comes to mind is, if the last collective bargaining agreement ended in 2015, what has formed the basis of your operations for the past 6 years? Two, because they're claiming that their members have gone through harrowing financial struggles, which has been amplified by the spiraling inflationary trends in Nigeria, also amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic. A bigger question also arises. There's what we call the bridging allowance that takes petrol from Lagos. So we pay petrol tanker drivers money to load petrol from Lagos to other parts of the country. Now, if we've been paying these allowances steadily, where have these allowances been going to, and why have the drivers not been paid? Now, they say that we have until the 10th of April, and on the 10th of April this year, and if no collective bargaining agreement is reached, then they can no longer guarantee the continued provision of the services. Now, with regards to the safety valves, they've said that they are surprised that the federal government is indifferent about the measure, because they are very concerned about the rising numbers of tankers involved in fire incidents. And when these fire incidents happen, their members are the first to be affected. And they've also given a deadline for that. And they say that by the 1st of May 2021, if safety valves are not installed in any truck, that truck will not be driven by the members. Now another issue arises. What exactly is the Department of Petroleum Regulation doing? If this is an issue that has been identified and flagged by the PTD, what measures have they taken to ensure that this is done? And then what measures are they taking now that this ultimatum is out in the public space to ensure that we don't get to the 1st of May 2021 and nothing has happened or nothing has changed from today? Now, also, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources needs to sit down with both the NARTO and the PTD, and we need to sort out this collective bargaining agreement in the short term. Now, the long-term issue is, why are the pipelines not working? If the pipelines were working, if the other depots outside Lagos were working and functional, we shouldn't be discussing it. But this is a long-term measure. Let's deal with the immediate issue before us, because we shouldn't forget 10th of April is just a week after Easter. Yeah. So this is a call to the regulatory authorities, to the bodies involved. Let's get a solution done. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's get the solution done. Let's listen. We'll hopefully bring you an update on that with a response from the DPR. Importers pay 251 billion naira demurrage on raw materials. Others, New Telegraph reports. Manufacturers and other importers are feeling the brunt of supply chain disruptions at the nation's seaports as they lost 251 billion naira on cargoes trapped at the port since 2020 due to demurrage and other charges. Tunde, please take us through the story.
Okay, so we're here. I mean, I was about to say we're here again, but we're always here, really. And obviously the pandemic and lockdown of the past year, and the disruption that it has created has only exacerbated an existing problem, the problem of infrastructure and the inefficiency and the opportunities that creates. So there's a problem with structure, there's a problem of process and procedure, right? That cuts across the entire, port system. And what it does, and it has a huge and negative effect on the cost of doing business, right? It increases the cost of importers and has a knock-on effect, obviously, on manufacturing. I mean, many factories have been idle for some say for up to a year because they have things that are stuck at the ports since 2020. The solutions have been discussed extensively, right? We need to utilize or reduce the burden on the Apapa ports. We need to have ports, and I mean, there is no reason why everything is concentrated there in the first place. If there was less burden on that port, then there is less pressure for one, or there's less opportunity for the cost, which is one of the charges against them for the custom service to exert undue influence over the process because of the discretionary powers that they apparently have. Where powers are discretionary, we all know that then therefore there isn't a set process. That's another way of saying there isn't a set process and a procedure and or fee, right? And obviously you can imagine the amount of graft that comes out of that. The end result is situations like this. I know very few countries that can survive this sort of burden on business. It makes it almost near impossible for any legitimate business to survive in this situation. Many of which are financed by banks. Interest rates keep going up, and who else? Not many businesses can sustain this. This level of exposure. 251 billion just in demurrage and other fees is a huge and avoidable strain on business. But we need to take action, or else we'll continue to be here and we'll keep coming back. Yeah. We'll keep paying lip service to ease of doing business, but actually, if we don't, actually fix the things that ease the doing of business, then we will continue to be in this position and situation.
Thank you very much, Tunde. Very correct. We must fix, like you've mentioned, I think this is the second story you talked about, fixing the issue. We must fix the problem. We must get to the root cause. Thanks. We have some comments on YouTube and on WhatsApp, a number of them on the local government issue and people for and against. Believe in the car responding to Spartacus says they've been true. That's the local government have been, most of them have been non-functional. But instead of removing it, let's fix what's not working, or else the same issues will eat up its replacement. Very well said. Ifeanyi Chukwu says it's obvious that the cause of the decline in the telco subscribers is mainly as a result of the federal government directive on suspension of new SIM cards. Olatubo on WhatsApp says, good morning, Ayo, Mr. C and Tunde. The truth is the local government is at the mercy of the state government, even though their existence and responsibilities are clearly stated in the 1999 Constitution. He describes that as mediocre. Just like the message you read earlier, Ayo, the local government is being gagged by the state government, period. All right, let's go on to this story. Interesting headline here, Mr. C. Police arrest 2 pastors over ESN, that's the Eastern Security Network attack on operatives. The Nigerian Police Force has arrested 2 pastors in connection to the recent attacks on operatives in the Southeast region. The pastors are among 16 suspects arrested in a joint operation by operatives of the police, the Nigerian Army, and the Nigerian Air Force. According to Force Public Relations Officer CP Frankumba, the arrest, which is an outcome of painstaking, deliberate, and tireless efforts of the Nigerian police working in collaboration with their counterparts in the Army and Air Force, is aimed at bringing to justice persons responsible for the emerging trend of attacks on security personnel. Please take us through the story, Mr. C.
Thank you, Ayo. And the first thing I need to point out to listeners who haven't read the stories the headline is very misleading. It says 2 pastors, but reading the body of the report, there's no mention of any pastor. Now, what has happened is there was a joint operation by the Nigerian police, the army, and the Air Force, and 16 male suspects were picked up and arrested following what they describe as painstaking and deliberate investigations. Now, recovered from them were weapons and ammunition and other incriminating items. And they say that two of these identified men were part of a team that killed police officers at a police checkpoint in Imo State in December 2020. And they say that they will charge the suspects to court. Now, beyond all of this, right, is the fact that there is a general level of insecurity all over the country, and it's not limited to any region. And we will continue to treat the symptoms. Now, there are causes and things responsible for the rise of groups such as IPOB, Eastern Security Network, Amotekun, and the likes. And until the government is prepared to address these issues, which includes a poor economy, poor economic prospects for people who graduate from school and have nothing tangible to do, poor living societal conditions, poor welfare, until we're ready to collectively address these issues as a nation and decide in what direction we want to go, we will continue to deal with issues like this. Yes, criminality will never be completely eradicated, and where anyone is accused of a crime, the person should be given his day in court to provide all the evidence to exonerate himself. And if he cannot, and the court finds him guilty, then he serves his punishment. But beyond all of this, there's a reason why a lot of people are turning to criminality. And there's no evidence that strongly suggests that people who have been through the Nigerian correctional system have come out better in terms of the way their mind operates, in terms of the way they perceive life, in terms of the opportunities they are allowed to exploit after they finish serving their custodial sentences. So it's a general conversation. It's something that we cannot limit to just security, because security is the symptom. But what is the root cause? And until we do that, I'm sorry, we'll still be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. It seems like this morning we're speaking a lot on root cause of issues as opposed to just the surface level. We're seeing the effect of certain things, and it's more about dealing with it. I wish we could take this story, Tunde. It's on Delta residents groaning as oil spill hits community. Do you have anything? So 30 seconds. The people of Baramatu Kingdom in Warri South West local government area, Delta State, have cried out over the ravaging oil spill from the facilities of Chevron Nigeria Limited for over 6 weeks. Yeah, while we continue to be dependent or heavily or overly dependent on oil, our government remains dependent on oil, which means the IOCs act with a bit more impunity. Now, some of that is changing with the judgments against Shell, and that they must pay compensation for the spillages that they've been involved in. This one apparently involves Chevron. And it's unfortunate that we're still talking about this. And there's very little detail about soil. It doesn't create the kind of international outcry as it does in other parts of the world. Yeah. So very often these things fly under the radar here and the community suffers. Let's hope that the outcomes, if this is accurate, that the outcomes are similar to the Shell one, where they have to pay hefty compensation to the community. But we want to move past compensation. Livelihoods have been destroyed, every day. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tunde. Thank you, Mr. C. As always, great conversation with you. You can follow Tunde at Bighoofs on Twitter and Mr. C at Mr. C on Twitter. Follow us at Smooth 981 FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. You can catch a replay of today's show on our YouTube channel, Smooth 981 FM Lagos. In a few minutes, we'll have Tega with us for the Locker Room 981. We'll also be streaming that on YouTube, so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell so that you know whenever we go online. All right, Smooth 98.1, enjoy some smooth music.
The headlines.
All right, thank you everyone for listening. Have a wonderful day. So I just want to end the stream and then